We are going to give an overview of an interesting project that opened about a year ago. I am Anna Pratt with BWBR Architects, and we were the architect of record with this project. With me is Paul Wenenberg with KWK Architects, the design architects for the project. This project was to provide new housing for 4 fraternities and 4 sororities on campus. Their previous housing was having issues with deterioration. The campus wanted to reuse and renovate an abandoned student residence hall for new fraternity housing and then build a new building for the sororities on campus. First off, where is University of Nebraska-Kearney? This university was started in 1905 as the Nebraska State Normal School at Kearney. It became part of the University of Nebraska system in 1989. The university is in central Nebraska, about 3 hours west of Omaha. The university has 4,427 undergrad students and 1,848 graduate students. Students come from all over Nebraska, 47 states and 56 countries. The campus is 515 acres with 48 buildings. The campus provides the buildings for the Greeks on campus. This provides a certain level of living conditions often not achieved with fraternities housing self-operated. I have worked on several projects with universities trying to bring them onto campus to have a little more control and increase the level of the living conditions. Putting them on the meal plan also helps with some of the health department concerns of some of the organizations. This always creates a tension between the group's desire for autonomy and feelings of excessive oversight. One of the goals of this project was to provide greater community between all Greeks, both sororities and fraternities. The desire was to create a communal village. So why bother supporting the Greek system? It has certainly endured its reputation of hazing, alcohol abuse and exclusivity. The Greek system does have some beneficial aspects as well. They do provide a sense of community that breaks down the larger university into a smaller group, especially helpful for freshmen. Many of the bonds will last a lifetime. There are strong alumni connections that can aid in future career endeavors. Communal benefits with parties, mixers and intramural sports. Leadership development is another opportunity with the roles for leadership within the organization. Philanthropy is another cornerstone of the Greek system, giving back and developing a culture of giving back to the broader community. One of the important issues of each of the organizations we have found is the desire to have a unique, dedicated entry. This would be an opportunity to provide their signage as well as creating a unique identity for passersby. We heard quite a bit about the importance of having a front door and a front porch so they can hang out as a group outside. The other issue that was very important was the issue of flexibility. Since the organizations are responsible for recruiting their own members, the numbers can change year to year. If the organization has a finite number of beds, if they don't meet their numbers for any given semester, they would either have to pay for their empty beds. In this case, they want flexibility so they could have rooms that could be rented to the general population of students on campus. So, this brings us to the conceptual layout. Each organization would have their own entry and front porch. They would enter their own living room and study space. They would have an internal staircase. They would also have access to an internal corridor to get to the shared elevator and second emergency stair. You would need a card to get back into your group space, however, so you could not get into any other organization space. That was the guiding principle. The upper floors would have more fluidity. This would allow for groups to grow and shrink utilizing the bedrooms on the upper floors. The general population of students would also be able to backfill any open bedrooms not filled by students of the organizations. We engaged the student groups to get feedback for their desires. We had the different constituent groups give their input into what was important for them. One of the big issues that came up was the sanctity of their chapter rooms. We originally had the concept of the groups sharing the chapter rooms and have lockable storage for their ritual items. There was a great deal of pushback from this concept that would have saved money. We utilized surveys of bedroom configurations, bathroom configurations, etc. We would have the students get up and put a green dot on the things they liked and red dots on what they did not like. This was a good exercise because it gave everyone a voice. I have been in many focus groups where a couple of strong-willed, gregarious people would control the direction of the conversation. Once we do this exercise, it could drastically change from the votes of people who were not talking. Once the votes were in, this would be a good catalyst for conversation. The following were the top 5 comments from each of the constituent groups. Each group had their own important issues. Pan-Hellenic group was interested in the large party opportunities. They wanted a large space for hosting events. Catering kitchen for dinner parties. The RHA focus group wanted to avoid having to share bedrooms with non-Greeks. I guess that goes into their exclusivity complaint. IFC group wanted to make sure there was adequate storage. Again, going back to the ritual storage and the ability to store construction materials for homecoming floats, etc. Student government groups weighed in and were interested, as were most, about having a dedicated entry and front porch. The front porch becomes this interstitial space where you can be between the public and your own space. The ultimate see and be seen space. The housing board was concerned there was ownership of space. People from outside your group should not have the ability to wander through other group spaces. Finally, the MGC group, which was a smaller minority group, had space for their group and wanted the ability to grow into one of the chapters. This was the incubator for the facility, if you will. Now the site chosen is just east of the student center, in between existing residence halls on campus. Martin Hall, which was a residence hall built in 1953, was chosen to be renovated for the fraternity complex, and the sororities would be housed in a new building adjacent. The existing Martin Hall was a 3-story building with a basement. This was an all-brick building with stone trim. The structure was concrete post and frame with flat slab floor. The building had good bones to work with. The renovation would be a gut rehab. Essentially down to the structure. The typical floor plan was traditional doubles with a common bathroom on the hall. Fortunately, the structure had columns, so all of the walls could be removed. This would allow us a clean slate. The first floor had some challenges. This design prior to ADA had a series of levels on the main floor. It had a very nice large lounge which was down 1.5 feet from the lobby, but then the residential was a couple of feet above the lobby. What we decided to do was to overframe on the concrete slab and align the lobby floor with the residential wing, and then have the lower lounge level accessed by a 2-sided elevator. These are some interior shots of the structure once it was demoed. You can see the columns and the dropped beams we needed to work around. This is a section diagram of the proposed use for Martin Hall. The basement would have shared spaces like the laundry and community kitchen. This would also house the chapter rooms for each of the organizations. This shows the lower level and the access via the new elevator and staircase. This level 2 had a level change, but we did not have any of the public spaces located on the upper level of the basement to avoid access issues. All the public functions are on the same level served by the elevator. The first floor is the main entry level for each of the groups. Where the existing building had one main entry, the new scheme provided entries to each individual group off the long side of the building. A continuous porch allows for ADA access to each of the entries. Each organization will have an entry and a main lounge or living room, and a smaller study lounge off the larger lounge. They would then have access to an internal stair to go to the upper levels of their bedrooms. These townhouse arrangements also had an internal corridor that was common to all units access the new elevator and stair. This corridor would also access the common bathrooms for public events in the Grand Lounge. This Grand Lounge would be accessible for the whole Greek community to rent out for events or parties. This is a diagram of the new stair and elevator that was needed for ADA access to all the floors. This also provided a 2-door front and back door to negotiate the half-flight down to the Grand Lounge. We also utilized this new tower to provide ductwork for supply and return air for the HVAC system. The exterior of the elevator tower tried to harmonize with the architecture of the existing building. The second floor provided double bedrooms and private bathrooms dispersed throughout the floor. En route apartment is also provided on this floor. The second floor has doors in the hallway to allow for each organization to have its own set of bedrooms separated from the next groups. Finally, the top floor is an open corridor for maximum flexibility. Most groups could maintain the numbers to have the dedicated rooms on the second floor, but the third floor would allow them to grow or constrict and could also be backfilled with the general student population. These are renderings of the first floor concept where each house would have its own front door and private living room lounge. This is an image of the entry concept. A continuous porch would allow access to all of the front doors and a ramp would provide access up to the porch level. This porch level is elevated to align with the first floor in the buildings. Originally this floor was about 3 feet above grade on the exterior. The elevated porch, while leading to ADA issues, did provide an elevated view of the common lawn shared by all of the organizations. This is an aerial view of the complex with Martin Hall in the foreground and the new sorority hall at the top of the page. There is a central lawn which was envisioned to be shared by both the fraternities and the sororities. This would allow greater interaction amongst all the groups. This new quadrangle is then anchored by the student center at the top, which would provide the dining for all the residents. The building diagram for the sororities is like Martin Hall. The chapter rooms and shared spaces in the lower level and the main entries and lounges on the first floor. The upper floors once again are dedicated to bedrooms. This is the lower level of the sorority building. The chapter rooms for the 4 groups above and smaller rooms for the MGC groups. Larger public bathrooms are provided due to the assembly occupancies on this floor. Not all the participants would have rooms or access to bathrooms up on the upper floors. This is the first floor of the sorority house. Once again, dedicated entries and porches. Access directly into their living rooms. Each organization has access into an internal semi-public corridor with access to the elevator, additional emergency stair, laundry and public restrooms. This is an exploded view of how this works. The second floor, like the fraternity model, has a series of dedicated pods to each organization. Bedrooms around central bathrooms and open sink area for building community. These pods are accessed only by the members of the organization. They would need to fill at least this number of beds from the university to keep the bedrooms dedicated to their group. The third floor, like Martin Hall, is open so there is maximum flexibility of growth and constriction. This also could be where the general student population could backfill unrented bedrooms. Now some images of the finished project. This is looking at the central lawn, knitting the 2 buildings together, providing a central communal space.